afternoon, everyone. Greetings of peace, greetings of love, and a very, very warm welcome on behalf of the Brahma Kumaris at the United Nations and the Unitive Cluster, Joni, and Red Dot Foundation, Gillian D'Souza, who is on her way. We were waiting a few minutes, giving her some time to get across here, but she hasn't responded, so she knows she's coming. So we'll start. So again, warm welcome to you all. We know it's a very busy time at the UN, and even though we are few of us, but we are grateful that you all are here. And I would like to give special acknowledgement to our friends from the mission of Guyana to the UN, and also the mission of Nepal to the United Nations. So warm welcome to all three of you, actually, two from the Guyana mission and one from Nepal. And along with them, all our other friends from the NGO community. So warm welcome to each and every one of you. Today, we want to look at social development from a different perspective, a different approach. We're like halfway through the Commission on Social Development conference, and many subjects and ideas came up that were quite noteworthy. But we thought of looking at social development from different lens. And that's why we are calling it a spiritual vision in order to transform the trajectory of social development. In other words, we know that these things are happening on the outside of us. All the challenges and the crises and etc. We don't have to go into the detail. I think we're all familiar. But today we want to explore the possibility of not just working on the outside, but what if we tap into something deeper and higher from within, and holding that space, that vision, and then coming forward with that attitude, the difference it would make, rather than jumping in to save somebody, which is great. But how many people are we going to save when we do that? Is there another way? So that is what we want to explore today. And I'm really happy to see certain people in the room and those online. Special welcome to all of you. And we also have Sister Gayatri, who is also going to be sharing with us. She's joining us online. So we have a few wonderful expertise to shed some more light on this subject. And it will be open to the rest of you also to do the same. Before I ask Sister Kinnari to share a little bit more about this inside-out approach, if you want, or spiritual vision, I'm going to ask all of us to reflect on this question. To envision what the ideal, cohesive, or coherent society look like to you, because this is the topic, right, for this year's conference: social cohesion, social justice. So envision what that ideal cohesive society or coherent society look like to you, and what does it feel like to live there? So let's take a moment to reflect on this. Thank you. Hope some insights came up, some thoughts. And what we would like it for you to do, for us to do, is to turn to the person next to you. I'm sorry, those online, you might want to write in the chat what came up for you, what that looked like, and what does living there feel like. And of course, we will save your comments. So maybe turn to the person next to you and share for a few minutes what came up for you.
Makes us all sisters and brothers in each other. Including the person that's experiencing the extinction
whatever economic class, gender class, social class. That's how we get the world.
Oh, I would be very happy about society. I would feel free. Yeah, that's exactly. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all very much. So since we're such a small group, I think we can get one word from each other as to what came out from the conversation. We one word each.
Energetic flow.
Energetic flow.
Freedom.
Freedom. Simplicity.
Our balanced ecosystem.
A balanced ecosystem. Can those and chat here and Zoom hear us clearly?
Shall I read some of the ones that are in the chat?
Yeah, one moment. Sorry, my friend here.
Balanced ecosystem.
Balanced ecosystem.
Harmony, tolerance. Harmony.
Tolerance, open-mindedness,
Peacefulness.
acceptance.
I also said contentment was something came up here.
And those online?
Online says Om Shanti, a sense of comfort and trust. A cohesive society is one that honors the unity of uniqueness of its people and provide channels for them to express their hopes and aspirations. And one where people are genuinely happy, not the jumping up and down and grinning kind, but a true feeling of inner security.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much. So I hope this gets us on a good start as to what we want to explore today. I turn this over now to Kinnari, and she will walk us through this concept of the spiritual vision. Kinnari is also NGO representative of the Brahma Kumaris. So, and welcome, Gillian.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Sister Savita, for taking us through, walking us through that reflection and setting the environment and the mood. We all are here from different fields in this commission, and we all want social development. And the way we look at social development is something external and also an inner process. And we, as a spiritual organization, this journey started like a year and a half almost now, when the last commission, and we were like, okay, what can we offer as a solution, because they were looking for solution. We know what the problems are. We know where the gaps are. We understand with the noblest intention, and we have so many expertise from different fields doing everything that they can, but we are unable to reach where we want to reach. And as a spiritual organization, we looked at what practices or what spiritual wisdom that we could offer. And we were seeing our own experience. We say it's the 9th decade now, 90 years of our existence. And we've been serving all walks of life, different culture, different age. And there is transformation which is happening. And what we came down to was our foundational, fundamental spiritual wisdom, which is very inclusive, which is very universal and could be used by anyone. It worked for us, so we said we gave it as an offering to the UN. And we wanted to share it with all of you as well. But before we go there, the journey, we shared it in the UN as a statement, we did a side event. And we said, okay, we're sharing this, but does this really work? So we wanted to do a little experiment, like an evidence-based. So it's not just theoretical, but an evidence-based approach. So we did 2 pilots, and we'll get into what that experiment is shortly. We did the 2 pilots, and the 3 basic component was a shift in consciousness, 3 consciousness component. We call it as SIT. All what you just did, you came and sat down, sit to accelerate. Now, S stands for soul consciousness, where soul consciousness means that we see each one as that having inherent and infinite potential. And when we look at each other and the self in that way, so we are able to overcome many ego biases, whether it's of color, gender, culture, nationality. And secondly was instrument consciousness, where we changing the perception of how we see our abilities, our skills, our gifts, but to be used for a higher purpose, acting as a channel for the better good, for the good for everyone. And the third consciousness was trusting consciousness. We all have resources, we have relationship, this body is also a resource, but in moving from ownership to be like a steward, like that we are our caretakers. So that will help us shift from consumer mindset to giving mindset, sharing mindset. So we are no longer coming from like the social organization where sometimes resources become like a competition. We hustle for funding and things like that. And we will hesitate to share our knowledge, share our manpower, share our, what do you call now? Like we patent ourselves rather than free flowing of information. So when we practice these 3 consciousness, that has an impact, especially on our champions who are the change makers in our social development field. So we had external researchers who observed this. We did a pilot first in 10 countries, and then we did a larger pilot in about 64 countries and about 800 plus participants. It was a 30-day program, and all they needed to do was take 15 to 20 minutes from their day. We would give every day like a awareness, like a 50 words, 70 word of positive awareness related to this SIT consciousness. And we customized 3-minute meditation that they needed to practice 3 times during the day and journal at the end of the day. So we did a pre-assessment and a post-assessment. And in the pre-assessment, we collaborated with the University of Waikato, it's based in New Zealand. And we were seeing 3 metrics. One was self-awareness outcome questionnaire, like how am I feeling, the well-being. Then we did a resilience questionnaire and a well-being questionnaire. Self-awareness, well-being, and resilience, because these are so fundamentally needed, especially for the change makers. And we took a small sample out of that, about 30 people. And what we found was their well-being went up, their emotional challenges went down, and their overall resilience was increased. So something that we do consistent, small steps when we do consistently has an impact on the well-being. So if we can empower the change makers, the frontline workers, they can be better contributors to the organization. So this is like a spiritual trajectory that we are offering. For making an external change, we go in. Even as an organization, when we come up with service programs for the outside world, we go deeper in to move forward. And you will all get a chance to do it as well, hands-on. Moving from outcomes, so like Sister Savita, she just mentioned, how do you envision a coherent world? And there were so many words that you all shared, like the values, the virtues. But for our social sector, for the policymakers, for now, we took the outcome as our goals, as the SDG standard goals. If that is the outcome that we all want to see, individually and as a group, what are the actions that I need to take, or we as an organization need to take? And if I want those actions, what should be my vision? What is the vision that I need to hold for myself and for the better good? We all want good for everyone. So if that vision has to happen, what should be my attitude? Is it an attitude of holding, or is it an attitude of sharing, an attitude of abundance, an attitude of gratitude? So if that attitude has to be nurtured and fostered, what is the awareness that I need to hold? What is the awareness that I have about myself? How do I see myself? How do I see the other? Do I see myself as a being of positive energy? Like, what am I bringing? Because each action is traceable to that awareness that we hold. And that awareness comes down to that consciousness that we all are. So we can't pin down, you get to do it, like you can do here, and we can have a beautiful tapestry at the end. But that is the spiritual trajectory. Now we can do inside out, or we can do outside in. So you'll get a feel of both today, and you will explore for yourself. Are you ready for the journey? Okay. So now we have our dear friend, partner, Gillian Nazareth, right? Yes. And she is the chair of the NGO Committee of Social Development and also the co-founder for Red Dot Foundation. And we've been knowing her for a while, and her enthusiasm I've been seeing through the commission. And even today, it was so nice to hear you in the civil society. You know, I'm sure you all witnessed that. And she lights up the room with that, and it says the passion that she has for what she's doing. We would like to hear from you about the trajectory and the work that you do.
Kinnari, thank you so much. And Sister Savita, thank you so much. Thank you to the Brahma Kumaris for arranging this event. I share that I was one of the students when you were doing the test case at the beginning. I think it was a year ago now, at around the same time. And you were going to do a side event last year in February around the outcomes, and I couldn't attend at the last minute, so someone else did. So that's the background from where I came with, and what Kinnari shared just now was, to me, this was a completely alien concept. She kept saying these words, and I was like, yeah, okay. But, you know, like, if you've seen me today, I'm rather action-oriented. And so I'm like, yeah, okay, I have to think, and I have to, you know, become conscious. What am I being conscious about? But I have to say, credit to the team, because y'all walked us through. We used to do weekly calls, we used to do reflections, and that actually slowed me down to take a few steps back, because I was on that chart, I was somewhere already. I had gone into attitude and consciousness. I'd forgotten the starting, you know, the action bit. I had it all mixed up. And so for me, this was really interesting to to go through the process and take a step back and try and follow an organized method of achieving this. And it was easy for me because, like many in the room, and I point especially to Jean Quinn here, the sustainable development goals we do in our sleep, we know it, so you've already got me on board when you say the end result is the sustainable goals. And so then I started plotting this map, like self-correcting to say, am I conscious of what I'm doing, which leads to the end result of achieving SDG 8, 9, whatever. And I share with you the real example of, since many were here at today's Civil Society Forum, we talked about the eradication of poverty. And we talked about today's theme is around policy implementation and the Doha Declaration. So I used this logic to say, if I want to work on extreme poverty, I work backwards to say what should be my actions, what should I be aware of. I did the reverse from the outside in to start self-correcting. I'll tell you, it's very hard because I was tired, I wanted to read, I wanted to watch Netflix. But it helped centered me as an individual such that I was able to guide the team to what was the outcome that we wanted. So for me, it was using this process on myself and expanding it to the group as the larger group of volunteers. I didn't have any magic bullet of achieving a civil society forum. It was following this process. And so for that, I thank you all, because of course there are times that you're stressed and you're tired and you're like, what have I missed? I'm in a bad mood. And then things like the action or the vision. So I kept thinking, okay, my vision is give people space at Civil Society Forum. My vision is, we talk about poverty eradication, and because it's easy to get distracted with 10 other things. So thank you. That's my real life example of doing this over the last 1 year. And I thought I should share a success story.
That's wonderful. I'm hearing this success story for the first time. In this way, she did say that she is practicing, but I wasn't sure. So thank you. I'm sorry, I brought it in. I just want to say thank you. And I just, as you were sharing Kinnari, I want to acknowledge Jean Quinn, our good friend. She is the previous chair for this NGO CSocD. So very warm welcome to you.
She leaves very, very big shoes to fill.
Not really, no. All in this together.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gillian, on that success story and how it still continues for current. So now we have another friend of his, Joni, Carley, and she's a convener of the UN NGO Unitive cluster, and she's co-founded the United Nations NGO major group Unitive cluster, and she's also an author for The Alchemist, The Power of the Alchemist.
The Alchemy of Power.
The Alchemy of Power. So the Doha Declaration, especially we were interested in paragraph 8, which spoke about the spiritual vision. Just read that. We remain committed to a political, economic, ethical, and a spiritual vision for social development that is based on human dignity, human rights, equality, respect, peace, democracy, and goes on. So it was very interesting when they introduced this word spiritual vision. And to build on that, this topic of today's conversation also was on the vision, what new vision. So I would like to invite Joni, Carley to share some new vision on her perspective on the spiritual trajectory.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome. So the Doha Declaration language about dignity, ethics, values, spiritual visions, that's a breakthrough. And it's a breakthrough because it makes intangible things like ethics and values and spirituality part of the global calculus now. That's new. And that's a big deal. And I want to unpack more of that as we go along. And first tell you a little bit about how we ended up here with the cluster. About 3 years ago, there were a bunch of UN NGO representatives who were just really tired of tiptoeing around these kind of words and these kinds of intangible factors like vision and spirituality. And we just had enough of using code words to address these things like consciousness transformation. So we decided to form the Unitive cluster as a way to name and claim spirituality and consciousness as critical areas of work for the UN, period. And as we go, and I'm going to go a step further as we go along, and I'm going to make the distinction of unitive consciousness in a bit, but you know, we are all in this together. That's unitive consciousness, that's it. So UNESCO does recognize this territory, and it has for a long time. UNESCO's motto is creating peace in the minds of men and women. And mindset is highly related to consciousness. In fact, we often use that word because it's just a more accessible word as a way of getting into this territory. So I like to say that the Unitive cluster works in the white spaces between the 17 blocks of color. That's really just a metaphor for how we frame the metaphysical space where factors like spiritual vision and ethics play out. And that space exists not just between the blocks of color, but over, behind, around, and through them. It's all pervasive. And it's amorphous. So it doesn't occur, these kinds of things don't occur in little boxes. And so they're harder to get at. And that's what I want to do today, is unpack that a little bit. Spiritual vision may manifest as goal and target fulfillments, but the lens of spiritual vision is its underlying values, not its manifestations. Vision and values are the work of consciousness, and the Unitive cluster is explicit about working in that domain. So then where is the domain of consciousness? Largely, that domain falls in the domain of metaphysics. And when we're going to explore intangibles like consciousness and metaphysics, but this from theory to reality model that we have here, I think of it as tying rocks to clouds. And that's a real breakthrough too. And so as I'm speaking, Sabita is going to draw where she can. Good luck. This may be a little too esoteric, but we'll see. There are certainly ways to bring these things into reality. So let's start with the metaphysics. Metaphysics is the science and philosophy of causality. It's the study of what causes what. In other words, it's the study of the intangible underlying drivers of the outcomes in our world. And it's these drivers we have to start paying attention to. They're the depth. The field of metaphysics is kind of like the underside of an iceberg. 95% or more of the iceberg is below the surface of the water. Even though you can't see it from a boat, that area determines not only the iceberg's future, but the future of the boat. And settled science tells us that metaphysical manifestations of our reality also constitute about 1 to 5% of it. And that means that the physical manifestations do. And that means that the metaphysical manifestations are 95% of our story. And yet we ignore them. We toss them off like they're inconsequential, fluffy stuff. And just like the underside of the iceberg is 95 to 99% of its existence, so is metaphysics that much of our existence. Just like the part of the iceberg below the surface determines what occurs on and around the iceberg, addressing metaphysics enables us to account for the invisible causative factors of reality. You can't account for it if you don't name it, claim it. Ignoring those factors imperils us. And it's why I think it's a big part of why we're doing so poorly in getting to the, what do we have, 12% of the way to the goals and a few years left to go. And we're just not there because we don't attend to these other things. So that's why those few words in Doha, it's only a few words, but they're breakthrough words. They're really critical words. Because everything that occurs in the material plane occurs first in the metaphysical plane of consciousness. So then what's consciousness? Consciousness, and again, this is the kind of thing that as you define it, it gets more and more mysterious. So, you know, you're never at the end of defining this, but I'm going to give it a shot and just try to get some territory laid out here. So it's a subtle body of intelligence that lies far beyond our minds and thought processes, and yet we sense it from the inside. So while it feels like an internal experience, our consciousness also connects us with the rest of the universe. It connects us with that mysterious holy spark that the human spirit, that flows in the human spirit. And that spark of spirit that's unique in each of us and common to all of us. This is the territory where we touch that spark and where we let it catalyze. We experience consciousness as an inner reality, but it is determinant of every outer reality that we encounter. Consciousness is the primal generator and also the ultimate interpreter of our reality. So in that sense, it's both the alpha and the omega. Consciousness literally determines how we live and how we evolve. In terms of causation, consciousness is root causal. And that means that every social crisis is first and foremost a crisis of consciousness. And that's why we have to recognize it as a legitimate domain of work. You could say that consciousness is an engine of causality, or you could say that consciousness is a catalyst for everything, everywhere. One of the easiest ways to access consciousness is just pay attention to values. Values like dignity, equality, and respect express in the physical world, but they originally occur in our consciousness. So values are like the bridge between our physical and our metaphysical realities. They are a bridge. They are the bridge. And that's an important concept to remember going forward. Studies show that our values are the primary drivers of our behaviors, even more primary than genetics, according to twin studies. Values like compassion, love, justice, and kindness drive us not only to become better people, but they also grant us access to that metaphysical place where spiritual vision occurs. And they help us clarify how we can act on our vision. Values are kind of like the gears of evolution, and consciousness is like the invisible field that those gears operate in. You could also look at it like values are the building blocks of change, and consciousness determines what we build. How we manage our values, how we develop our consciousness has everything to do with whether and how we'll transition from the current meta crisis to a flourishing, happy, just world. Scientists are revealing our wholeness at all scales of existence and through many different fields of study. And that emergent holistic worldview is coherent with almost all the global religions and certainly with indigenous wisdom. Science is demonstrating that our wholeness is not only within our own skin, that we are part of an entirety of all that is, from pre-particles to atoms to people to planet beyond. The evidence is very clear now that we are interdependently co-arising with everyone and everything else. And that truth, it's not new, it's ancient, it's ageless, but it's a new concept for us today because we're so conditioned in thinking more separately. So, and it requires us to completely reorient our ideas about how we govern ourselves. The evidence demands that we move beyond models that treat unity as some utopian aspiration that's impossible to fulfill. Because we know now that unity is our existential reality. Unity is just what's so. Unfortunately, our norms don't reflect that. While current policies and practices are mostly grounded in the false premise that unity is an unrealistic pipe dream, there is an emergent unitive consciousness that recognizes we are existentially unified in all our glorious diversity. We exist as an ever-emergent web of life that weaves from simplicity to complexity and back again, from wave to particle and back again, from chaos to structure and back again. And we are the co-weavers, and our consciousness determines how our web manifests. In terms of spiritual vision, consciousness of our unity is a game changer, because that Unitive consciousness resituates the field away from needing to work or pray for unity based on the erroneous assumption that it's never going to be fulfilled. It moves us away from visioning about fixing fragmented silos of needs and wishes and toward a more holistic vision that more accurately reflects the reality of our unity. So for example, let's look at the UN motto, leave no one behind, no one left behind. In the predominant separation-based worldview, which we're all acculturated to, mostly those in the West more so, and in the North more so, but pretty much it's all over. But in indigenous communities, there's no such thing as behind, because their worldview is much more circular, and their social structures tend to be more holistic and more egalitarian. Getting people out of the behind position just isn't even a thing for traditional tribal people, because their worldview doesn't accommodate their even being a behind to begin with. So my response to that motto is, who are we that there's such a thing as behind? And what kind of deep transformation do we need to effect so that we create a system that doesn't include so big of a behind? I didn't mean to put it that way. But as long as our mindsets and our systems are anchored in the myth of separation, there's always going to be a behind, and there's always going to be somebody in it. Unitive consciousness recognizes the inherent dignity of every thread in the fabric of life. Unitive consciousness says we each matter and we all matter. I wouldn't be me if you weren't you. Ubuntu. Doha's articulation of the need for spiritual vision signals how we can no longer afford to be unconscious of our consciousness. We live in liminal times. We're teetering between social and political systems that are not fit for the purpose of our survival. And we have emerging systems that are not rooted fully yet. So creating the world we all want to live in requires that we become more and more conscious of our interdependence and our interbeing, and that we treat our values as beacons of light that can guide us to a world that works for all life. These times require us to start shifting our spiritual vision away from addressing the symptoms of our crumbling separation-based worldview and toward recognizing the profoundly new ground, yet really primordial ground, of our unity. The emergence of unitive consciousness is redefining what constitutes good government and social development in accordance with the reality of our unity. You know how the physicists say if the butterfly flaps its wings in Hong Kong, the effect is felt in New York? That's part of the basis of unitive consciousness. So I want to conclude with appreciation to BKs and the Baha'is for letting us use this room, because it means so much to explore this field of unitive consciousness, and there's so precious little space to have this space dignified. I mean, when we first started at this, and you said this on the wrong elevator, you could lose a lot of your contacts, and you know, I mean, this was really just considered crazy stuff. And now it's in the Doha Declaration, only a little bit. But you know, having the space to speak the words and to struggle, that you know, these words they'll never do. But to wrestle with them really matters and really takes these things forward. So I know that when we step onto this field that we're exploring today of unitive consciousness and work together in that field, that the spirit of our vision is anchored on really solid ground. Thank you.
This brings us to a very interesting segment of the program. And what we had wanted to do, which we will do, is to invite you to map your trajectory. But before we do that, or invite you to come in, if anybody would like to say anything, share anything, our friend Carl is here from the Baha'is also. So thank you, Carl, for the space and for being here today. If you would like to say anything, or any one of our other friends, And then we will do the mapping. You know, when we were in Doha, as Kinnari was mentioning, we had just finished the pilot of this program, and the Minister of Finance of Guyana, on behalf of the
Dr.
Ashley Singh,
was representing the president, and he actually launched the SIT program in Doha. Because we had met with the president when we were in Guyana, and he really liked the project. He wanted it for the people. And then when we mentioned that we're going to Doha, and can they be partner, and they said, the finance minister. And he still is very supportive of, he wants it to be part of the community program over there.
So it's picking up, as Joni said. It's very small in the Doha Declaration, but it's getting there, one step at a time, one country at a time. So here we are. So if anyone would like to say anything,
I just wanted to pick up on that. All the presentations. Thank you very much. Those were quite insightful presentations. I'm happy. So I work with the Permanent Mission of Guyana, and of course, most of the work that I do is sitting in negotiations, talking about numbers and statistics and the global crisis, and just everyday work that you are aware of. And indeed, the language that we have in the Doha Declaration that is considered a breakthrough for persons who are aware that in order for you to achieve your goal, that thought first has to come from within. It is a seed that is planted, that is watered, and then it is manifested. So the question that I had is, this is an excellent, I don't want to call it an initiative, because I do believe this is how we should all have been living our lives in the first place. It's not something that should be taught at such a late stage in life, but rather something that we should all know, because charity begins at home. But my question that when Dr. Murthy told me about the event, I just wanted to inquire. I know that you have a long road ahead of you, but do you intend to have more collaborations with the UN system to see this sort of be a part of the work that we all do, not just maybe one sector of the UN system, for example, within the committees, language that will now be in resolutions, high-level meetings, if it gets to that point. Is that the intention? That is my question.
Yes, that's good. Thank you so much, Ms. Hazelwood. That's a perfect vision. And I think you probably spoke for all of us here.
Yeah, that's certainly why we started the cluster.
Right.
Was to use that wording specifically in UN interventions.
Okay. But Gillian would like to answer.
Because of course I get excited about negotiations. So thank you for allowing me to respond. So as part, the Brahma Kumaris are part of the NGO Committee for Social Development, as Jean Quinn and myself, and we make an active effort through the year to meet with member states to start talking about our priorities. And so as a live example, ahead of Doha in the summer, we met with 30 countries. Anyone who would meet us, we asked to meet with everybody, but with the specific reason of bringing forward what we would like to see as civil society in the declaration. And so that's already an active process. The committee has an advocacy subcommittee whose their job year-round is to meet with member states and try and give a list of priorities. So the system exists, and we work through that as best we can. Yes.
And to add to that, yes, we are very happy and we are working towards seeing the possibilities of introducing these kinds of concepts or approach or initiatives that will help to advance the work of the UN. And this is why I would say this is probably our first proper official event after Doha, where we openly bringing this to the table. And I'm very happy that we have you all here to hear us, to support us, and guide us also how we can move forward in the UN system with something like this. So, yes.
I want to say something, Joni, but I don't know actually how to put it because there's all sorts of thoughts going on in my mind coming from this. And I'm so glad you said to me today to come to this because I'm preparing for something on homelessness. And I view it on homelessness. And one of the things I'm talking about is the iceberg. And it's interesting that you talk about, you know, the 95% that is below that we don't see. And I don't know whether it's something we just talked about earlier, whether, you know, that 95% is all of us. What is under us, underneath for all of us together? And when you said about, you know, the indigenous people don't talk about behind. So there's a whole shift in consciousness to talk about all of us together. And my experience of being out of home, you know, it's just not homelessness on the street. So it's just you've created something within me now, just beginning to look at myself. I'm the 95% that's underneath that. How do we journey with that together in our values? And I love that idea of, you know, consciousness as a holy spark that ignites within us. And I kind of feel I'm a member of an international community of the Daughters of Wisdom. And it's really how we discover wisdom in the experience. And I think that's really the unity we're trying to talk about. At least I feel it is anyway.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's really about just being willing to wrestle with that and ask those questions and go there and risk saying things in rooms like this. Do you know? It is a journey. It really is a journey.
But together we can achieve
Yeah.
And you know, the indigenous, when in America, the indigenous people would trade with each other, and so they used sign language because they all spoke different languages. And they had a sign for the word wisdom. And I thought that was really interesting because in the way we do trade, we don't need that word. But they needed it enough, they had to create a sign for it. And the sign was to touch the heart, touch the head, and bring the hands together.
If we can do that, touch the heart, touch the head, and bring our hands together. Yes. Anyone else want to guess?
So I just want to briefly add that I was a part of the pilot program that they started, and it was so simple but so impactful. And this is just like a raw, not biased at all experience. I came through it in my email, and I was like, I need to try this, and it was so simple because there's the awareness, then there's just a 3-minute meditation, and then it's a journal. And rather than just, I think it's important to tap into your consciousness, but I like it because it taps into accountability. And I feel like that's what we really need. And I saw the group chat where all the members, it was just growing. It was growing so beautifully. But one thing I saw was, it looked like the members, there was a bit like more older people, which is perfectly fine. But I wish that, and that's why I'm putting this out there, that I see a few young people in the group that if you guys just take a look at that flyer and you even do it for a day and you try it, it creates accountability and to build habits, you need consistency. And that's what I love about that. And I'm not gonna lie, like I try to meditate every day and that's helped me so much. But I know that like I see people who meditate for 30 minutes a day and all like for however long. But I think what's important about this was just seeing that it's 3 minutes. I'm sitting down for 3 minutes with myself. I'm showing up for myself. And that's what I love about this movement. So this is just a raw experience from his perspective. So I enjoyed it and I hope you guys take a look at that flyer because it's helped me a lot.
The paradox is though, the deeper you go into yourself, the deeper you go into the great oneness.
Exactly. This is why there is this this analogy for you to get fruits of the tree, plant the seed. But for that seed to flourish into a tree with fruits, the roots have to go down, and while the tree is growing out and up, and then you get the fruits. So the journey is always in or deeper so that we can grow bigger and stronger. So yeah, beautiful. So shall we, because time is also going, shall we give this mapping a shot? I'm going to try what Joni was sharing. She told me to do the mapping for her. So I'm going to try to do this. But we do have a few. I think I only printed a 10 file.
You're welcome to come to there and do it, or
we would have preferred you want to come here and do your mapping, but I can just pass this around so you get an idea. The printing is a bit small, so you get an idea of what is written there, and you do the mapping there, whoever would like to, right? So we pass this around. So for Joni, I thought first universal consciousness. Or would you prefer interdependency?
Unitive consciousness, I think, is.
Or unitive, universal, unitive?
Unitive.
So this is unitive consciousness. So it is like this. And for awareness would be, I'm a positive ripple. I'm a channel for goodness, something like that.
It's also, I'm in tune with nature, but not nature, well, it includes everything, but
Just tell me the number.
17.
Okay, I'm in tune with nature.
Because the laws of nature are
Right.
these laws.
you're connecting the dots.
And then attitude would be growth mindset. Number 6. And then vision. I forgot which one you said. Universal dignity for all. Oh, unity and diversity. Number 10.
Dots.
Unity
You
and
just choose
diversity.
one from each and then connect the dots on the
You're
screen.
connecting the dots.
So you can go take your own pen and
And then the action. Promote inclusivity.
You know, I would say
Yeah.
make consciousness explicit as an area of work. Be explicit about the intangibles.
I've done some of this as well.
I'll have to write it.
Here
And then the outcome would be partnerships, probably,
That is something else, which is not.
or something like that.
So it's just.
And you can draw your in any direction.
At 3, no, I sent them to one business to get
So
some
you can choose one of the
just
outcomes.
little bit, something light, like coffee.
But if you want different outcomes, so if you say no poverty, so you go to one. And if I want no poverty, what are the actions that I will take to do? And you can go for, you can choose 1, 2, 3, couple of them. If you know, I'm not gonna do it. One of your own actions, so you could write that down as well. So then you make your way down, outcome, action, vision, attitude, awareness, or you can go the inside out. Which is
Beautiful, thank
if you want to do it on the board,
Yeah.
start with consciousness.
Okay, so consciousness, there's no number.
Sorry.
Thank you. Oh, okay, very nice. And then this, the attitude. Okay, I got it. Okay, good. So one, I am. Oh. Yeah. I have.
But I didn't Oh, yeah, I'm coming to do my homework.
So one. And I circle it. So consciousness. So when you have consciousness, there's awareness.
Right,
Okay,
right,
so-
exactly. And the consciousness is the soul consciousness in being an instrument for transformation. Sorry, trustee is different from transformation. Trustee. The soul, instrument for trustee. Yeah.
I need to choose one to work on.
To work on, yeah.
Alright.
And then you go to awareness
No practice round.
based on the
Whichever one you choose, whichever one is choose.
right. And then from the awareness is then shaping
Yeah, I can't touch my eye. We're all over. Spanish thing. I didn't know you chaired this year.
Yes, it's Cecilia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
I took over in May of last year.
Okay. And how's it going? I mean, in light of instructor.
Actually, it's really interesting. I expected them to do a very low summit.
right. And then you can.
They
go
went in
and-
just the reverse direction. So I was very happy.
Yeah.
It's really the UN system which is pushing us. So you can see them fighting.
Yes. Tremendous.
I like that.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
We'll see what happens with, but this was very encouraging.
That's very good to
You're
hear.
seeing, yes.
Yeah. I'm a Native American, so my buddy
Let
in the
me
White House.
see. Universal dignity,
I'm not native New Jersey, but I hear you.
lasting in our house.
I've changed my lifestyle in the last few weeks. The absence to visit family, this was for us.
Yes, yeah.
We will appoint another 5 minutes for anyone else who wants to give it a try.
Certain awareness.
And for those online, we're going to share the chart online so that you can also see it.
Beautiful. So what I did, I connected that. Right?
Exactly.
Okay. So,
And how we see what we see shapes the actions we perform.
so
let's
to
recap.
reduce, okay, so
Wow.
Oh, you also from London.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from India, but now I'm based.
My parents are English. I live in Ghana.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for asking that.
Do you like it?
Oh, I thought many years ago.
I'm
I
from
did.
Mumbai. Long time.
Personally, have only been once to India for my parents. My morning in progress.
We did check on the individual's pass. It's only to the death. It's only for the nation.
So the outcome would be 1.1, justice.
To that, only the permission. Just to register through next one of my friends is Jesse. Where's the register? That's all right. Yeah, that's all right. She was there when I left. She was there. Network, yeah. And then it's very strange. I just finished my work with the migration and I've been helping them on the side of them. So I was working on necessity because, you know,
I'm just saying, because you're saying to do something, manifesting, something, you take an action.
This is
So the consciousness is set. So there is no awareness, or you can choose.
If the chart try.
Even
speaking on the
So there's a high source.
No, that's kind of what I said.
Yes, anyone else? You want to give the chart a try? Alright, let me see.
Just losing balance. And I said,
It's a higher awareness.
After you, then we will proceed.
water, nuts, if you all want to know.
Oh, that's right. So just like because you can have this, but then there's the distraction. I'm aware of something I want to do. So that's what I'm doing. Okay. You know, there's an awareness. That's the thing.
Types of consciousness. Based on your private studies and your own opinion, which of the three types of consciousness do you think is the hardest to achieve?
Okay, sure. I'm calm. Resilient. I am acting for higher purpose. I am scared. I am serene and stable. I am secure, free. I'm secure and free.
It was easy for them to see themselves as a positive energy and
It says,
what was
here.
easy for you? You also selected
Yes.
I am
why did
secure
you
and
choose I
free.
and not the other?
Free.
I feel like I'm not sure. I feel like I could use this to make a change and a difference. But I think about it from the fact that you can't force, like, some people are inherently the way they are, and forcing them to hear this, not me personally, but like the world, is a difficult task.
Yeah.
Okay, friends, thank you all so much. I hope you all enjoyed it. It's kind of reflective and make you think, right? Because you want that whatever it is I'm gonna envision or say I'm gonna do or I'm passionate about, you want it to be authentic and real and not just, oh, I'm gonna do this thing, whatever. And so that's a beautiful thing. I thank you all so much. I felt that whatever it is you're gonna do, you're not just rushing this, you're doing this with commitment. So thank you all so much and all the best. And before we close, I'm gonna invite our main representative of the Brahma Kumaris at the United Nations, Sister Gayatri. She couldn't be with us in person, and she's online. So over to you, Gayatri. Will you unmute her, please? Somebody here, good. To give us the summary and the closing remarks.
Well, first of all, hello to all my friends there, Joni, and I see Carl there, and I see some other of you that I know present in the room. So hello to all of you. And it was quite fascinating to hear the remarks that you shared with us today. And to summarize is going to be a really tall order for me, because who can summarize such wisdom? I don't think I can do that. But what I'll do is to bring all the pieces together. I'd like to share something that happened to me this morning. And the purpose of beginning with this story is, first of all, I couldn't be with you because there's an infection that I have and I don't want to share it with you. So I have a cold and I didn't want to be in the same room with you just in case you would contract that a virus or bacteria or whatever it is I have. But the second thing, in that state of not feeling so well, I received one WhatsApp message, and within half an hour, it was followed by a second WhatsApp message. And I think it creates the ground or the field that we're dealing with when we talk about consciousness and you all described it so beautifully. So here's the story that happened this morning. I woke up and I tried to check my messages later rather than earlier. So around 8 o'clock, I checked the message, and there was an article by a civil engineer talking about the voodoo doll in your pocket. And she went on to really outline the dangers that we are facing with technology and particularly with our cell phone. So, this is what she said. Every moment you spend on your phone, you are being studied. The tech companies track everything track everything, your pauses, your hesitations, your timings, how long you spent on what, the location you're in, your relationships, your purchases, and even your emotions psychologically. They would do that. And she sent it out, I think it was a 6 or 7 page article going into the depth of this. It wasn't half an hour after a software engineer responded to her. Now, these are members of the Brahma Kumaris, responded to her. And his article was on the divine doll in your pocket. And he said, the quotation he had is, I am the user and I choose to create. He went on to say this same technology feeds, employs, connects, heals, educates, and liberates billions of people every single day. So I said, what is going on? Why are you both sending me these articles? And he says, I said, they're both biased articles. One is being biased by what they don't like, and the other one is being biased by what they do like. One is a civil engineer, very concerned about the damages that are being done. The other is a software engineer, and he wants to say, yes, this is what is good about it. So it is a paradox, I think, that we're living in, and this is why something like a shift in consciousness is required. And we face it on a daily basis. So for me, I looked at both the articles because they're looking at me now to say something, and I had nothing to say because what will I say to two people who are so passionately charged by two positions at the two end of the same spectrum? So I decided to apply the sit consciousness. So these two articles came to my attention. If I look at it with a soul consciousness, and soul means I'm looking at the dignity and worth of every human being, and I'm seeing that both are expressing something with that infinite potential. They're trying to bring a message that is very important to them. Okay, I look at it from that perspective. So there's a kind of, I'm stepping back in order to understand perspectives here. Then I said, if I was in the instrument consciousness, how would I respond? And of course, the instrument consciousness is I should not find myself in a position in which I'm taking sides, because that would not make me an instrument. They are obviously looking toward me for a response that would not be biased. So I thought about what was said today, the latent skills that they were both being manifested in what they're saying. The idea is no idea is a bad idea here. Everyone is entitled to whatever they feel is important without feeling they're judged because of that. And they're both expressing something for the greater good. And how can I keep, as an instrument, my focus on that? Perhaps they both want the greater good. And then, as a trustee, how could I be a steward then, be an agent in order for them to bring it, to manifest it into action that they could work in cooperation rather than against one another? How can you bring them together to cooperatively do something that would be beneficial? So I find that I wanted to start with that story because I find that these are the paradoxes we face, whether we are at the UN or whether we are wherever we are doing whatever kind of work we're doing. And it is something that we have to face. And this is why I really appreciated what was said by the Red Dot organization. And what was said was, you have options here for the shift in consciousness. You could start with the awareness, and that is the inside, or you could move into actions, which is going to be the outside. But for her, she starts from the outside. She starts with the actions, and then she moves into the awareness. And she used the word self-correction. And I thought that was an interesting term used, self-correction. Self-correction is actually a very healthy space to be in. It is not something that you beat yourself up with. It is not something that you feel lesser than, but it is something that you kind of draw on that inner wisdom that is within us. And when we operate at the level of consciousness, that inner wisdom shows itself to us in very meaningful ways. And so when she talked about the vision that she wants to have, I was very moved when she says the first and foremost vision that she has is giving people space. Because I think that is very important. For a shift in consciousness to happen, I have to allow the people to be who they are in the way that they want to be and encourage them to bring the best version of themselves into the room. So I really liked what was said then because it supported how we operate from the outside in and how that helps us in meaningful ways. And then, of course, the unitive principles. And these 17 blocks of color, that's a very striking metaphor, 17 blocks of color when you are as a lens in which you're looking at spirituality. Because what you're looking at, as was said, it's not just the 17 blocks of colors, but you're actually looking at those underlying values. And if you connect to the underlying values, then the consciousness would grow out of those values. Many people find consciousness is so ethereal, so up high in the sky that they don't relate to it. But you put it within the language of values, I suppose, and they start connecting to innate, inalienable values of the human being, then consciousness would automatically grow out of that. Also, the idea, which I mentioned before, but this was Joni specifically mentioned it, and that is the body of intelligence that lies deep within the human soul, which is unique to everyone. If we just recognize this one specific fact, this one specific spiritual truth, that there's a body of intelligence that lies deep within the human soul, which is unique to everyone, then people would not manipulate us to the extent that is being done today. They wouldn't bully us. They won't get us to do exactly what they want through a power of, bullying, because I would recognize that I have within me an intelligence that is unique to me. And that unique intelligence is something that will inform me what is the consciousness or awareness I need to have before I believe or not believe what someone is saying to me, before I accept or not accept the threats that are being thrown at me. And so that for me was also very important to take note of. I suppose I would say one of the final things well, just a couple more things before the final, is that if we talk about consciousness, we're talking about something that unifies us. Consciousness could also divide us because if I have a false set of values, if I have values of self-interest and I have values of being the most powerful and I have values of things that are not in alignment with unity, then my values are of discord. It will create something that won't support unity. And so values in and of themselves actually are good and bad. But when these values are connected to principles, such as the unitive principles, then the values take on a form and shape to support something bigger and greater. So what was said, again, that was very important to note, was a unitive consciousness resituates the field. A unitive consciousness resituates a field. And what is that field? From trying to fix things and working in silos to something more holistic, to a more holistic approach. And the beautiful teachings from the indigenous culture that there's no behind to leave anyone. Because if all our life is a circle, if we all belong to this circle of life, then it's true, there is no behind, right? We suddenly find ourselves together, rubbing shoulders, shoulder to shoulder. So when I work with that kind of a unitive principle, then the values, of course, that will emerge from that will be one that recognizes the dignity and the worth of all living things, of everything and everyone. And that's where this concept of Ubuntu is so very beautiful. And the Ubuntu is I am because you are, and it's equivalent to the whole world as a family. So I would like to end with this, what we were asked to do. I would ask you to now touch your heart, touch the center of your forehead, feel that living being that you are, the soul, and then put your hands together. Now, this is unity, right? When I put my hands together, it's also a symbol of humility because I don't think there will be unity unless there is humility. And in that position, I'd like to remind us of the words that we began this session with. And let us just reflect on those words. Energetic flow. Freedom. Simplicity. Tolerance. Open-mindedness. Inner security. Comfort and trust. Let's hold those words in the sacred spark of our consciousness. In the awareness that they are inherent in my being. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gayatri, for wrapping it up so beautifully. And thank all of you for supporting this cause, if I may say so. And I think Kinnari will put up the website for those who would like to visit the website and learn some more about the initiative and maybe participate. So thank you all very much, and we have to, vacate the room. Another event is starting at 3 o'clock. So we went a little bit over time. So sorry about that, and hope that you have a very successful CSocD continued. So thank you so much.
Some flyers, and this is a free resource where you can try logging. It's called justsit.org. Some flyers and to the evidence paper. Feel free.
Would anybody else like to? I was thinking I could make hard copies and send them to you if you think you want to have our portraits or you want the digital. That's what I meant, that I would scan it and things would happen. Oh, yeah, that's true. I would not make a hard copy necessarily. I actually meant a colored copy. Yeah. I mean, it's a hard copy. Exactly.